We're back, baby. It's the charity stripe. Pitch your free throws because they are free. Fisher, Desopoulos, Nicky Snacks, Kreider, the DJ. It is April 12th on a Wednesday, 2023. Play-in last night. Hawks take down the Heat. I think we were a little bit surprised, but after watching that game go down, the Hawk, Nick and I talked about it on our Amazon Am show. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. Come join us. We go tonight, 6:30. Anyone could come in. And we always bring people in. Makes the conversation a lot more fun. Nikki Meals Schultz, who he officially approved the nickname, joined us last night.
I'd love to hear that.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, you guys used it on a Best of Believe show." We're like, "Yeah, you did. Thanks for watching, Nick." We were talking about yesterday everything this Hawks team has done wrong. And then Nick, me, and other Nick were talking last night. Well, we didn't really consider everything that this Hawks team has done right. So this Atlanta Hawks team at full tilt has two really great rebounding bigs, has a point guard when he's on, can score in bunches and facilitate, has a number 2 option that can score at every level pretty much, and is a great defender. And then they've brought in Sadiq Bey. They have Bogdanovich healthy. This is a roster that's constructed to contend. So, to me, what was really interesting...
To contend?
To contend...
What do you mean by that?
Contend. When you say contend, you mean like...
Like,
do you mean just be in the playoffs?
Yeah, be in the playoffs and be competitive. I don't mean contend for an NBA title. I mean
contend to me means win an NBA title.
Yeah, sorry. Contend play in the playoffs. It's a playoff team. It's a playoff.
I just never understand what the okay. Obviously, you want to win as many games as possible. Obviously, you want to get to the playoffs, right? But I'm not saying that teams seem like they're content with just being a playoff team and not being a true contender. But there's just so many teams that get there and they're constantly the 7, the 6, the 8 seeds, right? And they'll never go anywhere besides that. Why not make some crazy roster revamps?
That's what we were talking about. That's what I ask all the time. That's what we asked yesterday. That's what we talked about last night.
Why are teams okay with just being good enough?
Because it's a product in the court. I don't know. But
no, I think, to me, this isn't necessarily the answer, but it's more just pointing to the facts of the last 10, 20 years. It takes a certain caliber of player, amongst other things, to win an NBA title.
Right.
The Warriors won last year. The Bucks won the year before. Giannis, Steph, LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Steph. It's not like these other guys that are 8 into 15. Jimmy Butler isn't winning a title. No. Donovan Mitchell hasn't won a title. Devin Booker hasn't won a title. Those guys are winning again and again and again because they are a top 7 basketball player in the NBA. And if you don't have one of those guys, it's nearly impossible to win a title. Mm-hmm. So it's a tremendous challenge from a roster creation standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, to say, how do we not be a 5 to 8 team? How do we not be a 5 to 10 team? How do we be a top 4 seed in whatever conference we're in and actually be a true title contender?
Well, I felt that we were talking about the Thunder last night. It was who came up in this kind of conversation we were having. And the Thunder brought in Paul George. They had Russell Westbrook. Well, outside of Kevin Durant leaving and the disaster of a James Harden trade, this was the best team that they were possibly going to have with Russell Westbrook. My kudos to them, what I thought they did exceptionally well, was they realized we're not winning with this team. And they made the change pretty quickly. Paul George didn't have a long stint in Oklahoma City. They made the change rather than let this go on for 4 or 5 years, which was his contract. They made the change after 2 seasons where Paul George was an MVP candidate. They go, okay, this isn't working. He wants out. We can't win like this. And they got a boatload of draft picks for either guy.
And Shai.
And Shai. And they got a guy who, I'm not saying is one of those guys. I think we're all in agreement, as if it stands right now, is probably not in those upper echelon of guys that you can win because of. Using that Bill Polian.
The Bill Polian.
Shout out to him and his
win
family.
With or win because of the distinction
I don't
between
think
that.
Shai is that guy, but he's a hell of a starting block. Yeah. And you have Giddey now. And now you have Chet. And now you have an army of draft picks for when someone becomes available next. Let's say down the line, these young superstars. Let's say things are not going well for LaMelo Ball. but he's putting up numbers. And, he's Giddey's great, but he's not as good as LaMelo. Let's say that. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm just saying hypothetically. Or Ant-Man.
But there's also, if you're bringing LaMelo Ball into that team, LaMelo wants to be the number one guy. Right now, Shai is their number one guy. He was probably going to be an all-NBA first-team guy, a guard, which is it's an incredible accomplishment.
So is he a guy you can win because of now? If he's an NBA all-first-team player.
No, who did I just list off?
I know you listed off those guys, but if he's in that upper echelon of guys, if he's an all-NBA player, do you not think he could break into that group?
He's got some work to do, some serious work to do.
He needs a bit more of a three ball.
I mean, we're not even in the conversation yet because he's 22, maybe.
Do you think he can get there?
Maybe, but we're talking about Jason Tatum not even quite being there yet, right? Jason Tatum if we're talking about guys on the cusp, I'm talking about Steph, LeBron, Giannis, the true contenders in the way that we're talking about the playoffs. Who are the teams that we think that can actually win? And this is, I'm not just talking about right now looking at the playoffs, but also the last 3 months that we've been chatting about the NBA. Maybe the Nuggets. Maybe Jokic, top 5 player in basketball. Last year before, MVP.
But you need more.
Joel Embiid.
You need more than those guys.
Even those two guys aren't enough.
Yeah.
They haven't done it yet.
Because you need.
And then the other teams that we're talking about that can win the title, the Warriors, guess what? They have Steph Curry. The Bucks, guess what? They have Giannis. The Celtics, guess what? They have Jason Tatum.
But they have that guy, but you also in that mix, and this is something else you were talking about, why was Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo not, why is that not working? Because Jimmy's probably a top 25 guy still.
He's probably a top 15 guy.
15 guy, but I don't think I think he's probably going to trend backwards and trend out of that top 15.
Yeah,
top
15
25.
and 25. Yeah.
Bam's top 30.
Yeah.
So you probably have a top 20 guy and a top 30 guy. The Celtics have a top 10 guy and a top 15 guy.
They have a top. I still need to see Jaylen Brown be an efficient and productive player. He is a productive player. He is a guy that I trust taking a shot when the offense is stagnant, but he still turned the ball over too much this season, and he did not shoot well. He scored a lot of points. He took up a lot of slack from this team. Top 15. I'm talking about Shai-Gilgeous Alexander being a top 15 player, and I just mentioned he's an all-NBA first-team guy.
Yeah, but
Donovan Mitchell will be an all-NBA first-team guy. Those two guys are ahead of Jaylen Brown right now. There's only so many slots in your top 15.
I'm not saying that those
Jimmy
guys
Butler
are
was
not.
Jimmy Butler was the best player on a team that went to the finals and lost.
Yeah, but a couple years ago now.
Well, he also was the best player on a team that was one shot away from going to the finals last year.
We beat them in 6 games.
They missed a game-winning shot in Game 6. Would have pushed it to 7.
But it didn't, and they lost.
Okay, I'm just talking about Jimmy Butler versus Jaylen Brown right now.
Next year, who do you want to have?
Probably Jaylen Brown, but I'm just saying it's a hard conversation to give your top 15. And
He's our second best guy, is my point. Our second best guy
but
is in that realm.
But
not
I am telling you it is more important that Jason Tatum is number 7 on the list of the top 10 than it is that Jaylen Brown.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying it's also vital that you're second guy. Like right now, Jokic.
Sure, but you're talking about Shai-Gilgeous Alexander, you're talking about the Thunder, you're talking about these guys between 15 and 25. What I'm saying is it doesn't really matter because if you don't have a top 7 guy, the trend is that you can't win an NBA title.
Correct.
So what does it matter who else you have? If you're one of those teams with Shai-Gilgeous Alexander, okay, you do whatever you can to possibly get him to top 8, top 7, and then you make sure that you put the right guys around him, and now you're talking about a contender,
but
a
I
true
think
contender.
Let's go back really quickly in
thank
history
you.
and look at the winners, and you tell me if they have a top 7 guy each time.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to.
Yeah.
Yes, right. But let's see how far you have to go back. Is it going to be every single season for the entirety of the NBA?
I'm curious to see if we can't find. I could find. There's one season where they didn't.
Golden State, yes. Bucks, yes. Lakers with LeBron, yes. Raptors with Kawhi, yes.
Yes.
At the time, he was top 7.
At the time, 100%.
Okay. Warriors.
Yep.
Already they had Kevin Durant and they had Steph Curry. Cavs, LeBron.
Yep.
2015 Warriors, yes. Spurs. Do they have a top 7 guy?
I don't think they're there. But that goes to my point of what the Thunder could be. Let's say Shai is at a given point in your consideration a top 10 to 12 guy. Let's say that's his stealing. Let's say he gets there.
You're also they had the best coach of all time. They
A lot of
had
variables.
They had a guy, Tim Duncan, who's a top 7 player.
They have 4 Hall of Famers. on the court.
All-time basketball player.
They have 4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
On the court.
Yes, but at the end of their careers. But yes, and then
I'm just saying I don't think you can compare them in any breath to the Thunder right
Was
now.
Dirk a top 7 player when he?
Yes.
Yes, my point. Oh, sorry, Nick. I'll let you finish the list, and then I'll get to the point I want.
Keep going. The Heat, yes, with LeBron.
Heat, yes. Just mentioned the Mavs. Kobe with the Lakers. Paul Pierce, KG with the Celtics.
Yeah.
KG, yeah.
Okay. Spurs again.
Yep.
Heat again, but that was with Dwayne Wade. Was he top 7 at the time?
That's probably maybe not.
Okay. Spurs, Pistons.
No. And we all know that.
And then after that, it's just, it's literally the Lakers,
But they probably had
Bulls,
the Pistons probably had
Rockets.
5 guys in the top 35.
So I want to ask you, if the Thunder roll out,
Hello, title 20 years ago. Different NBA.
It was literally 2004.
but the different NBA, but what are the years you're about to list? Years prior to that, it's Lakers. They have 2 top 7 guys. It is the Spurs. They have 2 top 10 guys.
Bulls after that.
It's the Bulls. They have the best guy. It's for years. It's when he's not playing, it's the Rockets.
Rockets.
Yeah,
they have the best guy.
So what are we searching
saying-
for? Are we searching for anomalies? Or are we looking at trends? Like what?
I'm with it. No one's disagreeing on the
No,
trends.
I'm
with you on the trends. But my question to you is, ultimately, if the Thunder, and it's a big if they walk out of the situation with the bevy of draft picks, the group of young guys they have, if we're sitting here in a year, 2 years time, I'll say, give them a little wiggle room, and Giddey is a top 40 guy, Shai is a top 10 guy, Holmgren is a top 35 guy, and he's one of the top premier big mans. And I'm not saying as like Embiid, Giannis, or Jokic, but he's in the same breath as Sabonis, Bam Adebayo, and they cash in on a couple other guys. If Jalen Williams is a top 50 guy, and a couple of those other draft picks sit well, and all of a sudden we're talking about a roster of 9 guys deep who are in the top 120 across the board. Yes, they don't have a top 7 guy, but is there a world in which that team wins?
Yeah, when Shai becomes a top 7 guy.
So no. So the answer is no. That's my
No,
question.
I'm not saying that. I'm not
he's
saying
not
that
a top 7 guy. I'm saying he's a top
but he's
12 guy.
He's super young right now, and he has the idea is that you go get one of these guys that then becomes that, right? That then goes and is in the play-in and then makes it to the playoffs and then plays in a playoff series, which he's already done actually. Played with the Thunder when he with that team with Chris Paul, great experience, and you build that experience. And that's why I bring up the Celtics, because I'm just looking at the track that Jason Tatum is on and understanding that you have to set realistic expectations as a franchise when you have a guy that has the potential to get there. And I don't think any of us thought that Shai did, but I think after watching him this year, we all believe that he has the potential to be a top 7 player in basketball. I'm not going to necessarily say top 5 because guys like Tatum, guys like Luka, guys like Jokic, Embiid, those guys exist, and they're not in Giannis, and they're not too old. They're not that much older than him, right? But I'm with you. I just think that like he has to continue to get better. He has to continue to develop. He has to continue to get that playoff experience. And so do the other guys around him. And I would much rather him be the number 1, the way that he plays, the competitive drive that he has, his will to win, and have Giddey be their 2 or 3 who I think can facilitate, who can run the offense, who does a little bit of everything, as opposed to bringing LaMelo Ball in there and then shaking up, okay, who is our 1? Who is our 2? See the Timberwolves. They played really well last night against the Lakers. Anthony Edwards had a really bad game. Cat stepped up. But both of them have immaturities in certain ways. When Edwards has a bad game, Cat gets into foul trouble. He was tremendous in the first half. That's always been kind of my big knock on him, is that like play a full game, play a full series in the playoffs, because you have to win that. And it's tough. It's really, really tough when you don't have the veteran presence in the locker room, like Rudy Gay was talking about with D. Fergo on his show Speakeasy. Mike Conley was instrumental in keeping them in that game yesterday. He was probably the best player on the court for the Timberwolves. The Thunder need to go get a guy like that too. They can't just have all these young guys.
No, yeah, correct. I agree.
Because they have to learn from guys that already have that experience, who in the locker room, game in, game out through the 82-game season, can tell them, hey, here's how you gotta tackle this. When you get bumped, you get a little ankle injury, like here's what I did. Here's how you can get back from that. And yeah, but I do think their core, one of the most enticing cores in the NBA, no question.
Do you have to make a move if you're them?
And so much draft capital. They're in a great position.
We're talking about the Thunder.
The Thunder, yeah.
So if you're them, what's the best possible solution for you? Is it going out and signing a top 7 superstar, or just getting super lucky and making sure your core develops and you also use that draft capital to get more pieces?
I think it's some kind of combination of both, all three. Here's the thing. Right now we're sitting at the Thunder. This is in the NFL. We have 53-man rosters, and you have all these picks. You physically cannot have every single guy on the roster for all these picks that they have.
Right.
So ultimately, there's going to come a day
You have to get rid of them.
where Presti is going to have to go, okay, that's the guy we want to trade for. And that's why I brought up LaMelo Ball. He probably isn't the answer because I'm with you. I think Giddey is a great number 2, and I think Shai is a great number 1. You probably have to look at a situation. A team that I would keep my eye on for them is Toronto.
Yeah, I was about to say I'd much rather go get Pascal Siakam as opposed to LaMelo Ball.
I mean, we're talking about getting a top 7 guy in a roster to win it? Like,
No.
we're talking
I'm
about
framing
Shai
it with
being
Shai
that
becoming
guy.
that
Okay.
guy and making sure
but is
that
Pascal like enough to really put you over the edge?
It's gonna be a dangerous team, dude. Yeah,
it's.
I think
well,
so.
there's also they didn't have a guy. Giddey led their team in rebounds this season.
Horrible.
He did not have over 8 rebounds per game. They are the worst rebounding team in the NBA. Chet Holmgren is a massive part of their future. He has to come back. For me, number 1 priority, make sure that guy is coming back healthy and ready to play NBA basketball next season.
Yep.
How many guys are untouchable in the NBA? There's nothing you can literally trade to get them.
Probably,
1, 2. Well,
Giannis.
Giannis for sure.
Luka?
Yeah, unless the only way, and I'm not talking about guys forcing their way out. I'm talking about
Like literally, there's nothing that you can pay to get that guy in your
Giannis,
roster.
Luka.
The franchise just will not accept it.
Giannis, Luka, Jokic, and Embiid.
And probably Steph Curry for just like the tenure.
But I don't really. He's old enough now where it doesn't really count.
And I
Like,
would
he's
like-
gonna stay. He's gonna be a Warrior for the rest of his life. We
I
know
would
that.
like to think Jason Tatum, and I think something we discussed.
I think so. I think Tatum's in there.
And something we discussed also, and because you have a top 7 guy like Tatum,
And probably Ja.
What I was going to ask
I think I'd put Ja in there.
is
too.
a guy like Zion, like, is he a guy that if OKC's like, okay, you know what? Let's use these picks. Let's go get Zion.
would you do that? Would
I don't
you
know.
do that? Like what we've
He's
seen?
still young. He's, 24 years old, 23 years old?
I'm rooting for the kid.
Shai's 24.
But Shai plays. This guy. They are playing. If they were, if
Okay,
he
so
was,
then buy cheap then. Buy low.
if I could get Zion Williamson for the cheap, but at this point, draft capital is cheap. Contract wise, not so much because they signed him to that deal. So he's on that max contract deal. They are playing a game tonight, which if he was playing, they would not be. If he was playing healthy, they would be the number 3 team, maybe number 2 team, maybe.
Wait, in the West?
They could be the number 3 team in the West if Zion's playing with McCollum, with the way B.I. was playing at the end of the year, with the way Trey Murphy is like a
But Bi
fourth
also
guy.
he got hurt for a while in the middle of the season. Guys get hurt.
Guys get hurt, but he came back and he willed.
I think
this
it's a
team.
little presumptuous to say they'd be the 2 seed.
But it's
They
got to be
could be.
it's got to be a
They almost
team
didn't make
that
the
like
playoffs.
is kind of in a similar situation where they need to hit the reset button themselves, right?
I mean,
Like, it can't be like a team that's on the rise that's got I'm looking at Jared Allen here for the Cavs, but like their team's good.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
they're not going to shop him.
Why would you? You have 2 unbelievable. What do we? What,
Look,
what was the,
Their model is working right now.
They're in a great position because they have Allen and Mitchell, who have played in playoff series, who are older than 25, who are a part of their core
Allen's
4.
24,
Okay.
young.
Started when he came out after freshman year at UT. So he's already played 5 years of basketball. And then you have Mobley, your young talent. You have Garland, your young talent who can develop. So that's what I'm talking
That's
about.
kind of the
Thunder.
model that the Thunder should follow, though.
Right. Now, you get to a question of, can Donovan Mitchell become a top 7 player in basketball?
I think he can.
Disagree, because I think we've seen enough of him to know what he is. Unfortunately.
And how old is he?
I think he's 26.
I mean, there's a world. There's on a given night. I don't disagree.
26.
I ultimately agree with you, but to not poo-poo that point, there's a given night where he can be the top.
He can be top 10,
on a given
top
night.
15.
Yes, because if you think about where Damian Lillard has fallen in the shakedown of the top 10 players in the NBA year in, year out, can Donovan Mitchell have a Damian Lillard type season? Absolutely. Absolutely. So he can be that 8 to 10. Some of it is just he's a small guard,
Right.
And the defensive
And that's when you
liabilities
rely
that
on the
bring.
pieces around you to
Right.
get you over the hump.
Yeah.
And make up for that.
And I love you bring up the rebounding point because another thing we discussed last night when we were talking about what was working for the Hawks, and we said, all right, the Okongwu. I had said the Okongwu, the Capella comp, and that duo was not working. But I neglected what was working in Cleveland with Allen and Mobley. And what we saw last night with a bad rebounding Heat team
Right.
going into
So much
that,
of it is the matchup too.
the
Yeah.
matchup. The Heat were a bad rebounding team going into it. Bottom.
Really bad. Yeah. Yeah. And a
How-
terrible offensive team.
What do you say? Rudy said, talking
Sloppy.
about Rudy. Rudy Bam was non-existent in the offensive end, and a point
That game was a boring watch, to be completely honest.
Brutal.
It was
I mean,
sloppy basketball.
most Heat games are boring to watch because they're not
plotty.
They haven't been a good offensive team all season.
They need to get a guy. They need a shooter. They need a guy who can shoot them back into that game because they got that within 5, and it was the most methodical.
Does
really
Duncan
just-
Robinson even play anymore?
No,
No, it was really Kyle Lowry though, honestly, and Kyle Lowry who they need to move off Kyle Lowry.
yeah,
No knock on Kyle Lowry, but they're paying
He's
him too
old.
much. He's eating too much of their cap space.
their
up.
savings grace is they're the Miami Heat, and people want to come play there. The downfall is this team that they have right now, this iteration of the Heat, can't work because your guys, as good defensively and as they are good scorers, Bam and Jimmy, they don't have that ability to be a top 10 scorer. And I think you do. I think that's also paramount. I think a lot of these teams are the staff.
Their net differential this season was negative, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Which is ridiculous.
Because they made the playoffs.
They're
No.
only-
Like on court offense versus defense. Like they're the only team I think that's in the play in.
That's what I'm saying. Because they're in the playoffs, that's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, yes, close to 500.
They were
Two.
in opponents' points per game, number 2 in the NBA. They're the only team negative technically that you could throw the Timberwolves in there because they're dead even. But they're the only team that's negative. What number in offensive points per game were they in the Eastern Conference?
Dead last.
Dead last.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Dead last. You're behind the Pistons, who suck.
Who don't have their best player.
You're behind the Hornets, who didn't really have their best player, who stink.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they have some serious looking in the mirror to do. That was a big.
I mean, they could still get in the playoffs, obviously,
because what's going to happen is
right? Because they'll play the winner of the.
the Hawks will get crushed by the Celtics. They swept them in the season.
Good. For y'all, for you as a Celtics fan,
To me, I'm.
are you happier about playing
Yes.
the Hawks than the Heat?
Yes, because we are going to throw Marcus Smart at Trae Young. Now, Murray late in the game was awesome. We were watching him again.
He's a good player.
Because Bam was so occupied with Clint Capella and Okongwu, Murray's ability to get to the basket as a guard and get in there and work his floater and work his attack and finish at the rim, he's so long.
Yeah.
They didn't have a prayer. But you stick Brown on Murray, you stick Smart on Young, you have Jason Tatum taking somewhat of a breather on defense, and all he really has to do technically is kind of flotate to the perimeter and make sure Bogdanovich doesn't scorch one, or whoever that 3 guy or Bay is in there.
You guys drop one game maybe because Trey goes scorched earth in one game at home.
Which I don't, because we could throw Derek White at that. We don't. I don't think we're going to be in an issue.
I mean, he's a really good player. Like
he's probably top 20.
if he scored, yeah. But I'm just saying, like in a playoff game, he shows up. He likes the moment. I could see him dropping 40 in a game and y'all losing one when y'all are in Atlanta on the road. Like, sure. But I'm not worried at all.
If we swept the Nets last year with KD and Kyrie, there's very little doubt in my mind.
Well,
that you're perfectly capable of sweeping this Atlanta Hawks team.
You did sweep them, but there were 2 games that were literally down to the last shot.
I'm not saying it's going to be.
That series easily could have gone to 6.
Could have gone to 6, but it didn't because we put them away. And that's what good basketball teams do. We win those close games. You don't choke them out.
Yeah, I think yes. Those were like it was a sweep.
But that's you have that.
Those were
you have
4
that top
very
7 guy who
close
hits the
games.
big shots. Tatum hit a big shot in that
I
first
know.
game.
Typically, though, in a sweep, like when one team sweeps another, it's because there's such a margin of skill or athleticism between the two teams where like the majority of the games are being won by 8+ points. Yeah. Which I think that the other 4 games that I'm saying with the like, I'm just saying y'all probably win 5. It could be a sweep. You want it to be a sweep. You want to get through that series as quickly as possible. Get as much rest going into that next series because that's going to be really, really tough.
Our boy Brando talks about us owning the Sixers, and like I know I just use that for us owning the Hawks in the regular season. That being said, this Sixers team if Harden cooks, James Harden, a guy that led the league in assists. You got Maxey, PJ Tucker in the last game that we saw. Granted, we didn't have Jaylen Brown. We didn't have Rob Will. But in the last game we saw, which you need Rob Will to take down the 76ers. He's a must.
Yeah. I mean, Embiid, man on a mission. You know, he's
the MVP.
Going to be the MVP. He's one of those, like I said, he's one of those 7 guys.
Do you want to say before we go to baseball and football and such, what a disappointment Rudy Gobert hitting Kyle Anderson was, because if they had him last night, they could have won that basketball game. He could have been a big difference maker.
Yeah.
They were really in that. They kind of gifted that game away. I know Anthony Davis, the foul at the end, Mike Conley with the shots. To me, they really gifted that game away. They were Anthony Edwards, poor shot after poor shot. The travel in the corner, turnovers.
The turnover. Yeah, LeBron, he definitely
gifted that game.
He had a couple
away.
of bad turnovers late.
And that's where
I'm a little suspect of them coming into this series with Memphis, to be honest.
It's going to be tough. They're a great defensive team, too, with JJJ.
Hey, first time that all 4 of the California teams have made the playoffs.
That's right.
Yeah.
First
Kings, Clippers, Warriors, Lakers.
That's
Pretty impressive.
Bad the Kings have been.
Yeah.
Well, the Warriors early, too.
Yeah, we were texting you about it.
Yeah,
if you look
Clippers,
if you look back at 2000, it's like, okay, the Kings and the Lakers are in the playoffs. The Clippers certainly were not.
Right.
The Warriors certainly were not.
Then it flipped.
Up until you get to 2010s,
it flipped.
Then you get to Steph Curry. He gets in there. The Lakers, right, once Kobe leaves, then they become terrible. The Clippers become really good with Blake and Chris Paul and DeAndre.
And there was that one iteration of the team where we thought was going to be terrible with Lou Will and Pat Bev, but they were kind of swaggy with Gallinari.
You know, it's crazy that Chris Paul, DeAndre, and Blake Griffin all in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Boston, Nuggets, Suns.
Yeah.
DJ.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much DJ.
Well, he's in the same boat as Blake Griffin. They're hanging out.
I don't know, man. Blake, he might get in. Hey, if you guys are sweeping the Hawks, he's going to play.
If Blake Griffin is in the game, I either know it's going terribly or awesome.
I don't think DeAndre Jordan's going to be playing, though. I'll tell you that.
No, I mean, again, you hope not. It's probably a disaster.
Thomas Bryant.
Who's got the best chance of getting a ring this year?
Of
Chris
those,
Paul.
Of those 3.
Chris Paul.
Not.
He's playing with Kevin
Griffin.
No, I think that.
We think the Suns are the favorite in this playoff round.
I do, and the West. I think the Bucks are the favorite in the East. I don't think the Celtics. I don't think either.
It's just a tougher road for the C's than it is for the Suns.
Right.
Philly, Milwaukee's brutal. Assuming that's what the path they have to go is on.
Would you be happy if Chris Paul got a ring?
This
ring. Not a ring.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we've always wanted him to get a ring, but does this ring not feel as good because
it's not his fault they traded for Kevin Durant.
Right.
It's not his fault. And quite frankly, with the way Mikal Bridges is playing, with the way Cam Johnson has been, I don't know. I don't think they're the favorite necessarily. But at full health, this Suns team could have gotten back there without the KD trade. I think the KD trade puts them over the edge. You're going out here going, wait a second.
I mean, you can't do that.
And there's a lot.
You can't do the hey, who are we kidding? Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are pretty. It's Kevin Durant.
What did I say? I said they are the clear-cut favorite in my mind with Kevin Durant. With the other 2 guys, they got a shot.
I don't know.
You don't think they have a shot with that team that they had before the KD? You think they needed the KD trade or was hopeless? I don't necessarily think that's the case.
I mean, they made the trade.
They went to they made the trade
because they went to the finals and lost.
Tatum went to the finals and lost, and you used him as an example before.
Yeah, but Chris Paul is not the same age as Jason Tatum.
I'm just saying it's possible they could have gone to the finals had they not made the KD trade. With the KD
I
trade,
think
it makes them the clear-cut favorite in my mind, especially without Paul George in that first
obviously,
round.
I'm just
That'd
saying,
be a tough matchup.
That's my whole point is like, who are we kidding? Why are we talking about Cam Johnson
Fine,
and
we don't
Mikal
have
Bridges? Because it's Kevin Durant.
I don't have to.
What else you got on your paper?
Okay. Saquon Barkley.
I think that Chris Paul winning a title is reminiscent of Jason Kidd winning with the Mavericks if he does win. He's
Kid's
better.
first one?
It was Kidd's only
Wow.
title. He's better than Kidd was.
Did Nash ever win one?
No. He's better than Kidd was at that time on the Mavs. But I think it's very clear that Chris Paul leading a team was never going to get it done. Because if it would have gotten done, it would have gotten done that year against Milwaukee.
That
was the shot.
At some point with the Clippers.
Right. That was the shot for him to win his title. And winning obviously would be incredibly, I'm sure, cathartic and worth it for him.
It's more of a win than Gary Payton.
Yeah. I'm just like, he's not the first or second best player on this team.
No, but he's
Not by a long shot.
He's it's probably the equivalent
Because it's not even Kevin. Even if Kevin wins again, like there's kind of an asterisk there too, or at least people have an argument for there being an asterisk there.
Because he keeps chasing teams that are good.
Because he's playing with Devin Booker, who's he's a top 10 player in basketball.
We gotta make this top 10 list. I'm not saying that. I just think we just gotta make the list.
But I'm more so forget what his ranking is. More so just to say like it's not KD by himself on a team.
We have 4 top 40 guys.
Yeah. So there's asterisk.
Okay. I have on my list, and I'll let you guys dealer's choice this. We could skip the Brittany Griner memoir, but glad she's making one. That's awesome. Jake Paul, Nate Diaz, great that they're fighting. I don't think we really need to hit on that, but cool. August 5th.
Is it cool? I don't give a crap anymore.
I like the Nate
I'm kind of over it.
since he lost.
No, just because it's like he had his chance fighting a real boxer and lost, and now he has to go back to fighting guys who don't have boxing backgrounds.
The only reason I like it is because I think Nate Diaz is a beast.
Yeah, but he's going to lose.
Nate Diaz?
Yeah. Jake Paul like picks guys that he can beat.
Or thinks he can beat at least.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Tommy Fury is like he's in a boxing family. He's a professional boxer.
It's true.
You know, and I think Jake Paul
And
put up
even
a good
still-
fight against him.
And
but-
even still, Tommy, like, not really.
but yeah, not
And
like
it was
he's
a
an
decision.
amateur.
And it was a decision.
exactly.
Yeah, I almost gave you the little quotation marks on.
I just want
I'm
Jake
done with
Paul
like, all
to-
the theatrics and everything of like those fights. Just like
I'm just tired of seeing, like, on Twitter, like, KSI and Jake Paul beefing. Like, can they just fight?
they
But
have.
are they beating? He fought.
They're
Jake,
friends.
They're friends.
No. Logan and KSI are, like, friends now, but apparently KSI hates Jake.
Whatever. I think
Oh,
it's
it's
all,
all an act.
Which, you
It's-
know,
it's-
like,
it's all
that's
act.
BS because they're brothers. Like, what are you
they're
going to,
all,
like,
it's all entertainment.
And they all had that. They had that sports drink, which actually kind of crushes.
Prime?
Yeah, it kind of kills. But Logan Paul.
Not a sponsor.
We'll just go through
the
Pauls
fighting
really
world,
quickly.
in my opinion, is all pretty. It's all pretty fake. It all takes the page out of the WWE for the most part, and they all ramp up everything. And look, we just saw the WWE and UFC just merged due to the Endeavor Group. Shout out to Ari Gold.
Yeah.
But the UFC, in my opinion, has definitely made its way. I mean, it's been far more superior in the last 10 years, because it's raw. You know, I mean, we saw the Adesanya fight, and guy was knocked out cold, and it's like the most intense. You know, and you see guys who are just bloody going. I mean, Nate Diaz is one of the guys just covered in blood, keeps fighting, but. This is really just the Jake Paul thing is just like a way to get boxing back as much as they can with like a younger demographic, right? Because he's such a celebrity within, Gen Zers and TikTokers and all that. I think that boxing's cool with this, but in my opinion, it's just kind of boring and corny.
Well, I think what they're doing wrong is if that's the road you want to take is to get a younger audience to boxing because you've lost our generation.
So you're saying bring them to the actual professional, like.
Well,
KBO.
Have a fight with. First of all, the thing that we've talked about this, but the thing that's so beautiful about the UFC is it's Dana White's show. Dana White picks who fights who. That's it. There's a commissioner. There's none of that in boxing. It's every individual for themselves. Why is the WWE has been so successful? Vince McMahon ran the show, makes the scripts.
Boxing doesn't have someone like that.
No. So if you have this guy, Jake Paul, if there was that guy in boxing, the Dana White, hey, wait a second, I have this attraction, this sideshow that I know people want to see. Let me pair a real fight with that and have a co-headline to really draw people into the sport of boxing.
I think it's just because it's too splintered all over the place.
100%.
It's in too many different directions. It started so long ago too. I mean, there's been boxing before football was a thing, and there's just so many different directions. There's so many different belts. There's so many different weight classes. There's so many different televised groups that it's ridiculous. And the pay-per-views are outrageous. Like who watches those anymore? UFC does a good job of just keeping it all together, right? I mean, yes, there's the MMA and then there's Bellator, but like the UFC, they have their brand like outlined perfectly. You know exactly where to get it. ESPN Plus is where you're buying all the pay-per-views. You got the Ultimate Fighter, you got the same guys. You know your weight classes pretty easily. You know all the premier fighters. There's so many boxers out there. I can name you maybe like 4 boxers now that fight professionally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they're all heavyweights.
Maybe 5. Garcia, Javante, Canelo, Tyson Fury.
Wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexander, though. Like Joshua.
Yeah,
Ruiz. I mean, this is like, the heavyweights.
Ruiz.
Yeah, the heavyweights.
Yeah, I mean, like we're getting
But
into
they're
the weeds,
all
though.
the same guys that have fought each other. We're
Right.
just talking about the guys that are the big fights, like the
Right.
headline fights over the past
like
3 years.
And the UFC does a pretty good job of telling you like who like the guy is who's like ranked number 11th in the world, right?
Yeah.
Or the guy who's up and coming, right? Like you can name a bunch of guys. It's more recognizable.
I saw
Benavidez, Bivol, like these top tier fighters who are undefeated. Nobody knows these guys are.
I saw Sugar Shane because Raul Rosas Jr., who's 20 years old, lost in that fight this past weekend. And Sugar Shane came out and said, like, go train.
He needs to start a show with Believe. He'll get his...
Raul?
Yeah.
Well, that's Sugar Shane was saying, like, go train for 2 years. Don't spar,
young.
but don't... Yeah.
He just turned 18.
Right. And he was like, you're chasing this, like, the limelight, but you're not ready for it. And he was like, just go train, go do the work.
Our
And in
guy-
those 2 years, he should just do a show while he's training.
Our guy Ian Butler, right?
Yeah.
He's a master fighter. He's been around the world for a long time. Trains wrestlers of all ages, Olympians. He knows this world pretty well, and he agrees. And I said it yesterday. It's an old man's game.
Oh,
It's not like
great
the
comment.
NBA where you have these superstars who are 22 years old, 24 years old. Even baseball where, Shohei Ohtani is the best player in the world and he's 27 years old. Like the guys who are winning the titles, the guys who have these amazing careers are like well into their 30s. John Jones, Adesanya, Pereira, like all these guys are grown ass men.
Well, it's not. Speed is great. And like Adesanya's had this.
It's all up here.
Adesanya's had the quote, like, he may have power, but I have precision. I always thought that was a great quote. And it was when he was going to fight Costa. Like, he's going to body him. And, he did get caught by Pereira in their last fight. But ultimately, guys like Usman, remember we saw Usman stomping on someone's feet?
Yeah.
It's like people were like, and the commentators were like, we didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much. Look, at the end of the day, all these guys are physically gifted. They're all in shape. They're all strong. They're all fast. I mean, it's the same thing like in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's very gifted as a player, but what he has up here makes him the best.
Sure. But why does he lose to a guy like Tom Brady?
Because
The mental.
Exactly.
Mental is so, it's massive, especially.
Because his line sucked, too.
good transition to football, though.
Team sport.
Yeah, great to read.
Saquon Barkley not wanting to play on his franchise tags.
It was too good to be true. Yeah. Oh, we got Saquon for $10 million.
Yep.
Come on, bro.
So
Right
what's
move.
next? He just holds out and they just don't pay him, or they pay him?
No, they would have to pay him. It would be a tendered franchise tag. So if he didn't go anywhere,
So basically he's just not going to play. So they got to find a trade partner,
Unless
or
they-
they got to get an extension.
right, to a number that he likes. And apparently, I think they came at him, at least in talks during the season. It was 12, and what his camp was looking for was 14, around that number. I mean, $2 million.
$2 million more.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's but when you're talking about running backs, that's substantial, though.
But he's thinking
And where the tag is right now, it's at 10. So that's a $4 million difference. Like, there's a lot of room that it's a couple players.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's important.
I'm talking, and it's not 1 for 14. It's 4.56. So you're 4 years, 56, 38 of that, 35 of that is guaranteed, probably maybe even more. If you're a good agent,
Yeah.
you probably got one.
And then at the end of it, you're looking at when he's 26 right now. So he's 29 and 30.
If you
Those
don't
last
any-
2 years of the contract, like a
you
guy
have
that's
no-
already dealt with severe
If he had no injury,
injuries.
It wouldn't be a question. They'd
No,
do it.
oh, not at all.
But like we were bickering about Eckler and what his worth was, and we kind of said, okay, like 5, 6, 7 mil a year. I would take that over the 14 I'd give to Saquon any day of the week. Because I could replace if I had the proper, which the Chargers haven't been able to do, which we talked about them maybe going to do in the
Run the
draft.
ball.
If they had the proper running mate with Eckler, it'd be a no contest because he's a touchdown machine and he's an unbelievable receiving back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are kind of holding out to find out what happens in the draft because there's 2 good guys in there who I think can be starting running backs right away. I mean, obviously our guy Bijan, but Gibbs I think is another guy who can probably start for any team that drafts him.
yeah.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people are waiting to see where these guys fall and if they're able to get their guy, and then that's when I think the trade pieces start going into action. Maybe day 2 with Derrick Henry or Saquon,
Derrick Henry's in the last
and
year
even
of his
Kamara.
deal. Henry's in the last year of his deal. 10 mil to Henry, 10.5 with bonuses. Or the cap hit this year is 16.3.
Eckler's a guy who's also on the market too. He requested a trade. I think he said that worst comes to worst, he plays this season with the Chargers and bets on himself and hits the free agency healthy and gets the number that he wants. I think he's content with that, but I think you're going to see some things happen in day 2 when when teams don't get Bijan or Gibbs.
Yeah. Shakes things up for the Giants, though, for sure.
Maybe refocus their draft attention.
Potentially.
The cap space, like, if you're a team like the Bengals, conditional third for Derrick Henry.
What are they paying Mixon right now?
I mean, he's got a. Let me see.
Because they lost Pirine, or I don't know if they re-signed him, but I know he was a free agent.
He's on his second. He's got this year and next year left, and then he's unrestricted in 2025.
How much what are they paying him?
9.4.
Are the Bengals really a team that needs Henry? Like, is that like what they're aiming for?
But everyone could use Henry, especially like think about all we've seen with Derrick Henry. How and they won the AFC in the regular season 2 years ago. That offense, it was like when Adrian Peterson was on the Vikings, and it was Gus Frerotte and Christian Ponder.
Well,
On the quarterback, it didn't matter.
He's in
now
such
with Burrow, it opens it up.
he's also in such a different position too, because for him he's 29, right? And he has to evaluate what he wants to do with the rest of his career and how much longer his career is going to be.
Right.
So if I were him, he's much more likely to take some sort of pay cut
Oh, yeah.
and just go somewhere where he knows he can,
He wants to keep playing.
win a ring.
The Ravens.
Henry,
I'm talking myself into the.
why not you guys?
Chargers?
Yeah.
Why no?
Yeah.
1 year.
Maybe.
You have the cap space. You have 7.
Like
cap.
I'm saying,
I
dude,
mean, I'd go to the
I think a lot of
Bengals
these
over
teams are just trying to see if they can get Bijan. Because if the Chargers can get Bijan at pick number, I think 21 or 22, they got to take it.
Can you?
Can you?
At 21, are you getting Bijan?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But if he falls,
He won't. I don't think because what was our biggest knock of the year on Bijan Robinson? Our biggest knock on the entire year of Bijan Robinson was that he had 300 plus receiving yards when he should have had 600. There were times where he made wide receiver 1 level catches in the open field with people on him, not out the backfield. Bijan Robinson is a generational running back talent. If this was 10 years ago, he'd be in the top 5 pick. If this was 15 years ago, we'd be talking about him being the number 1 overall pick potentially.
yeah.
So Bijan Robinson is a top-tier talent, as good of a quality running back as Saquon, Zeke coming out of college, playoff Lenny coming out of college. We all know this. I would love to see him I would love for one of our teams to get him.
Yeah.
You're not getting him at 26. You're probably not getting him sitting there at 21 where you guys are, we're not going to take him because that's just Bill Belichick's style. You probably have to go up. If
to
the
like,
Jets
to like the 15, maybe
well, if the
14,
Jets
13
make
range.
that Rodgers trade and they have to give up some draft capital, they do have they swap a third for a second in the Elijah Moore deal. So they have 2 seconds this year. They have their picks next year. They have the first. They still could be in a position because again, Rodgers is going to take up some major cap. You want to get some good young players on your roster. It's not people make such a big deal about the first and second round picks, but your roster is made up of guys picked in rounds 3 through 5. If you're the New York Jets, you may be in a position, okay, like I've gotten Aaron Rodgers, Becton's coming back, I've spent capital on Vera Tucker.
Go get some depth and trade that pick.
If
Where are they sitting at right now?
13. So if Paris Johnson and Skoronski are gone, which I think they will be,
Yeah.
do you want to take you could take Darnell Wright from Tennessee, you could take Broderick Jones, who Joe doesn't like.
I mean, but does Bijan even make it past 10?
Yes.
The Eagles?
Yeah.
I think it's a bad move for Philly to take him. If you're Philly,
No. Well, sorry. If all plays out accordingly, if you look at 1 through 9 right now, whether someone's trading up with Arizona or not, I think Philly is like primed for Jalen Carter to just fall into their lap.
or you could scoot up a little bit if you're Philly and just lock in getting him.
I don't even know if they'll need to, though.
They might, dude, because if you're the Lion, if the Eagles are just going to take him at 10, and we got to wrap up here in a sec, but if the Eagles are just going to take him here at 10, you're the Lions at 6. You might as well make the pick if you're the Lions if he's falling.
But
Him and Hutch?
I know. I love the pairing. I love it. But do you think that I don't feel like Dan Campbell wants to bring that into this team that he is turning into and what he wants to be a franchise with an identity, a guy that has potential character issues.
I don't think there. I don't. Let's we get dropped potential. Something's up.
Yes, for sure. Okay.
Bad decision making.
Yes.
You could also question that maybe Dan Campbell's the type of guy, though, who wants to give someone a second chance, who he thinks that he can mold into a great person and a great player.
I don't know if he's definitely a leader of men. I don't know if he has the time necessarily. Like, he had a great year last year. We expect them to be good this year. They need to be good this year, though,
For his job.
for his job.
They're taking a defensive player, though. They're taking
For sure.
The best available defensive player is going to them.
100%. And I think it's more so,
Pete Carroll might do it.
yes, he might, but I think they'll take Anderson. And then I think Wilson is also a great pairing across from, what's his name?
Hutchinson.
From Hutch. And then I
Shout out
think
to his family.
the way that it works out, like, I just think that Carter could very well be there. Because I think Eberflus is another guy that I like fit in the same mind as Campbell, which, like, does he want to deal with that? New head coach. That is a big risk to be taking a guy like that. Now, you talk about the Raiders, perfect team for him. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in the league in 2 years.
I don't want
And then I'm like, it's the Raiders.
But if you're the Raiders and you may want to make you have some serious roster holes despite some premier talent in certain areas. I think the Raiders could trade back. To me, if I'm the Eagles,
Agreed.
and I want Jalen Carter, let me move up to 7 if the Lions pass on him and just lock it in.
Mm-hmm.
So then the Raiders are sitting there at 10.
Do you think people are moving
Then
up for
anything
him, though?
I would.
But if you're them and you're at 10, you don't need to. I don't think you need to.
I think you got to. All right. Well, we have more time to debate on the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Fisher, Desopoulos, Snacks Crider, Daily Stripe. We'll see you guys next time.